This is the EMOVE Cruiser V2, the all-new version of the world's most famous long-range electric scooter. Ever since 2019, the cruisers have just been destroying other scooters when it comes to range per dollar. That's why YouTuber Eric chose a cruiser to ride across the state of Florida, and it's easy to see why.
It's quick. The range is crazy.
With a battery that's almost 3 times the size of the battery on a 9 Max G2 and a 1,000-watt motor that gives it a top speed twice as fast as your typical budget scooter. It's got a new display, new self-sealing tubeless tires, new suspension, and basically new everything, including 4 colors: orange, black, green, and a special pearl white. The Cruiser V2 is a great fit for so many different types of riders because it's a single motor scooter with a sine wave motor controller, and that makes it easy to ride. But it's got a top speed of more than 30 miles per hour, and that makes it faster than a car across town. And it just fits all different sizes of riders too because of the adjustable stem. I mean, this thing goes from way down low to literally the highest we've ever seen at 44 inches above the deck, though not everybody is gonna be able to lift it. We're gonna test its range, top speed, and ride quality against the 2023 EMOVE Cruiser S and see who the new Cruiser V2 is really for. All right, let's have a look inside the box. So you can see some new stuff here right away, like this display. There's a ton of new stuff in here. This is a completely new scooter. Let's get it out. So I've got the fender and I've got the charger. All right, and it's got the old school plug on it. And let's see, where's the charge port? I see, it's on the neck. That's nice. Pop right here, drop on. Right there. All right, I'm gonna snug these down and put this cap on and we'll be good to go. Oh, look at that. Its color is bright and it's all new. I have not seen this one before. It adjusts. Oh, this is really cool. Let's check out some speeds in the different modes. Okay, still feeling pretty chill. 13 miles an hour. Hit the plus button, mode 2. There we go. 29. Mode 3. Holy smokes. Okay, we got 47 miles per hour indicated. I don't expect it's gonna go that fast, but that's what our firmware limited speed is gonna be. All right, well, I'd better go get started with the range test, which I'm gonna do right now, because if this is anything like the original EMOVE Cruiser, it's gonna have a ton of range. I'm gonna be out riding for a long time. But I just do have to comment on this deck. I'm so stoked they have kept this so on brand that it looks so much like an EMOVE Cruiser, and I can't wait to check out all the new stuff on this scooter and check out the ride. All right, it's time for the top speed run on the EMOVE Cruiser V2. Let's see if it can beat the EMOVE Cruiser S. In order to do that, it's gotta go faster than 31.7 miles per hour. Okay, here we go. 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 31, 32, 33. It's looking good. Okay, pretty mellow launch. 22. Gotta beat 31 and a half to go faster than the Cruiser S. 31, 31. The EMOVE Cruiser V2's ESG official top speed is 32.7 miles per hour, exactly 1 mile per hour faster than the previous version, the EMOVE Cruiser S. 0 to 15 times were basically unchanged, with 3.8 seconds for the Cruiser S and 3.9 for the V2. Now it's time for the hill climb challenge. Let's see if the Cruiser V2 can beat the Cruiser S. To beat it, it's gotta make it to the top of the hill in less than 11.7 seconds. The Cruiser V2 climbed our steep 10% grade test hill in 12.6 seconds, almost 1 second behind the previous model. But don't get me wrong, the Cruiser V2 is a strong hill climber, more than a second quicker than the 9 Max G2. Then it was time to range test to see how far the Cruiser V2 can go on a single charge. All right, we are just a little bit more than halfway through the range test on the EMOVE Cruiser V2, and let's get some thoughts on what it's like to ride. You know, right off the bat, This is a much bigger feeling scooter than the original EMOVE Cruiser. The bars are much taller. They are much wider. They don't fold, and so it's not going to be as small when you fold it down, and it's heavier too, but we'll cover that later. The controls are completely different. So we've got the throttle over here from the EMOVE Roadster, the buttons over here that we've seen from the Nami. Ignore this, that's my GPS that's throwing up the speed in the bottom right corner of your screen there. And we've got the ever familiar headlight button and turn signals and horn, and this horn is pretty loud. We've got the grips. We've seen these ones before. They first showed up on like the Wolf King. They don't spin around when you're riding, as long as you clamp them down tight enough. You know, this stem, I mentioned that it's very tall, but it's also adjustable, and that's something you don't get everywhere. This thing can go so tall that, like, you know, even the very, very tallest riders are going to be very comfortable on it. But you can also set it up for kind of sportier riding, or set it up for, you know, shorter riders. One thing I did notice, you do have to get it pretty tight. Otherwise, it can sort of slowly creep down as you hit bumps. If you do enough miles, you just kind of notice it slowly receding downward. The deck feels bigger, if that's possible. I haven't measured it yet, but it is huge. Look at my feet. Huge. The throttle feels smoother. It doesn't feel quite as aggressive as the Cruiser S, and now I haven't dug into the P settings, so it could be that just the default settings are smoother. The brakes are fantastic. They are definitely stronger and better. Kind of the same as on the EMOVE Cruiser S. I don't know, they feel better, they work better. They feel super consistent. I think it's because of the suspension. And so let's talk about the suspension. This is very nice suspension. It's a big improvement over the Cruiser, which had those really kind of old school shocks up front, and they're always, I thought, a little too stiff. This feels really good for my weight. I think this is really well sprung for riders from right around my weight, about 165 pounds, you know, right up to the weight limit. It's just got a much smoother ride. There's a rumor that there are going to be some aftermarket shocks available for this as well. But, you know, these stock ones really feel pretty good. All right, let's check out the brakes. All right, here we go. I'm gonna try the brakes again. So consistent and so easy to get these brakes right. I don't think that was the case on the original EMOVE Cruiser. These semi-hydraulic brakes, as they call them, which is, you know, they're hydraulic in the calipers and they're cables from here down, they really, in some ways, have the best of both worlds. And part of that is the feel, is that the mechanical brakes aren't strong enough sometimes, and hydraulic brakes can actually be too grabby sometimes. And these are right in the Goldilocks zone. Maintenance-wise, there's also a plus to these, is that you get that power of the hydraulics and a lot of the feel of the hydraulic brakes, but without ever having to bleed your system. The hydraulics are all self-contained right in the calipers, and so, you know, they're a bit lower maintenance in terms of bleeding. So there you go.
The EMOVE Cruiser V2 stopped from 15 miles per hour in just 9.7 feet, beating the Cruiser S by 0.4 feet, partly thanks to these huge new rotors.
We are coming to the very end of the range test on the EMOVE Cruiser V2, and I always think it's so interesting the way that different companies deal with how the battery ends. We're at 0% showing on the battery right now, and I'm going uphill at 20 miles an hour. So clearly I've got something left. Okay, and that's it. We are reaching the very end. I'm showing 42.4 miles on the odometer, but that is really 40.6 miles because we started with 1.8 on there. So there's always some speedometer error. So we'll see what the real number is when we get the data logger.
The EMOVE Cruiser V2 covered an ESG official 40.8 miles on our range test course, 2.8 miles fewer than the previous Cruiser S, which has the same battery and output power, so we think the V2 got less range because it's heavier and has bigger, chunkier tires. Ever since 2019, EMOVE Cruisers have been the longest range single motor scooters we've tested. In fact, they're the only single motor scooters to cover more than 40 real world miles, and it's not even close. The next longest range single motor scooter we've tested is the VMAX VX4 with 32 miles.
There is so much new stuff that I want to show you about the EMOVE Cruiser V2, but first, let me show you the thing that I'm glad they kept, and that's the big surfboard-shaped deck. There is no mistaking that this is an EMOVE Cruiser, but you know, they gave it all the things that it really needed, like a much stiffer stem, and no fasteners on the neck that come loose. It's got a much more modern folding mechanism, and you can adjust the tension. The headlight has been moved much higher on the stem for improved night riding. The new TFT display gives it a much more modern feel, gives you way more information, and is much easier to read in sunlight than the old one. The ignition key from the old one is gone on the V2, which, you know, some people will miss, but I don't mind because these were not the strongest things. If you banged them around, they could get broken, so it improves the overall reliability. But before anybody asks in the comments, there isn't a code that you can use to lock the display, so we recommend that people do what we always recommend, which is to use a U-lock to lock your scooter to a bike rack or a pole. And right now, our favorite pick is the hip lock, which you find on Amazon. It's expensive, but it's the best defense against angle grinders. One of the features that remains from the original Cruiser has become a super rare feature lately, and that's the adjustable height handlebars that go from as low as you could possibly want them to be to literally the tallest handlebars we've ever seen at 44 inches above the deck. The handlebars are super wide at 27.5 inches. And that gives you a ton of room to mount accessories up here, and you can swap them out for just about any mountain bike handlebar. But unlike the old EMOVE Cruiser, the ones on the new EMOVE Cruiser V2 don't fold. The new footrest is a huge improvement. It looks sportier, but it also really helps with braking because you can get your body way lower and further back. It also makes a nice handle, and you get turn signals back here as well, where the previous Cruiser's round shape didn't give you a lot of good places to grab onto back here. And the reason they absolutely had to add a rear footrest was to prepare to brace yourself for the power of the upcoming dual motor EMOVE Cruiser. And yes, there will be, for the first time, a dual motor EMOVE Cruiser coming soon. And that's why they also beefed up the neck and the frame and, you know, everything else to handle all that power. All that strength comes at a cost though. The new Cruiser V2 weighs in at 78.2 pounds on our scale. That's 21.8 pounds heavier than the original Cruiser S. Can I carry it upstairs? Let's find out. So this isn't the production version. That one will latch down like this does, but also latch side to side. So this is gonna be a little harder to lift. This is a bit heavier than the Cruiser S, but the handles do make it easier to lift than I thought it would be. So I think I can handle a flight or two of stairs. The Cruiser's 10-inch tires are wider and more off-road capable than the originals. And for the first time on an EMOVE Cruiser, they're self-sealing. I love the look of the new front wheel, but the rear wheel is even cooler, and I'll tell you why. On almost every other scooter in the world, you have to choose between tubeless tires, which can be difficult to change, or tubed tires that can have split rims that make tire changes easy. Well, the rear wheel of the Cruiser V2 is tubeless, but also split rim because they put an O-ring in the middle that seals it together when you bolt it together. I just wish the front wheel was split rim too. Another feature that makes tire changes easier are quick disconnects for the motor cable, so you're not wrestling with the whole scooter while you're changing a tire. Now the old ones already had that, but the new ones are improved. Just like before, the Cruiser V2 has plug-and-play cabling, which makes life so much easier if you ever need to work on the scooter, but now it's got plug-and-play inside the deck as well. But the biggest spec of all, of course, is the huge battery at 1,560 watt hours. It's 3 times the size of your typical scooter, which means you'll need to recharge it 1/3 as often for the same number of miles. And that means you're gonna get more years of service out of your battery, since the number of years your battery's gonna last is determined by how many times you have to charge it. But longevity comes into play later on. A benefit that you feel the very first time you ride an EMOVE Cruiser is the fact that you can go like 10, 20 miles without even looking at your battery gauge and just relax and enjoy the ride. And it also gives you the freedom just to ride as hard as you want. The battery is made from premium LG 21700 battery cells, and it takes 9 to 12 hours to charge. I love that they moved the charging port up to the neck where it's more protected from the weather and from damage. But I kind of wish they put 2 ports here. Now, you can get an aftermarket charger from Voro for $99, and that'll take your charging time down to 5 hours. Speaking of options, the Cruiser is known for having a ton of different accessories, and that's true for the V2 as well. You've got different throttles available, phone holders, a throne seat, and just tons of other accessories.
Pros of the EMOVE Cruiser V2 include massive range, as always, great hill climbing, a big, comfy deck that's got more room than ever because of the footrest out back. On the con side, it's just really the portability and weight. Coming in at 21.8 pounds heavier and losing the folding handlebars is going to make it harder to get into the trunk without folding at least one seat down, and a bit harder to carry upstairs.
So who's the Cruiser V2 for? Well, basically it's for anybody that needs a really long range and maybe doesn't need to haul it upstairs a couple times a day. But to be really complete, I'm gonna bring back a checklist that we used on one of the earlier reviews of the Cruiser because there are just so many things this scooter is good at. Like we said before, you may eventually want more electric scooter than this, but you're unlikely to ever need more scooter than this. And if you take good care of it, it could outlast your car. If you want to get a EMOVE Cruiser of your own, use the link and the coupon code down in this video's description to get the very best price. Your clicks, your views, and our mutual love of scooters is what keeps Electric Scooter Guy going. And it also really helps when you watch this deep into the video. It really helps boost the signal, so thanks for that. I'm Paul from Electric Scooter Guy. Don't ride like me, but do remember to wear a helmet.